Howdy, folks. I'm a fanciful fuchsia ferret flying frantically further forth.
I'm Amber.
And here's some more frantic ferrets flying. I didn't know that ferrets flew, but apparently they do, according to Amber.
It was just one of the first things that came to the top of my head.
Yeah, that one was brought to you by Amber today. Alright, folks, our first letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Influencing My Friend into Asking for Separate Finances from Her Husband? Howdy, folks. I went on a super awkward double date the other night and wanted a second opinion. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I'm friends with Amy, a 29-year-old female. Our husbands get along okay, but they really aren't friends. Amy was recently complaining to me about how her husband spends all of their excess spending money on DoorDash at work. She's tried talking to him about it, and he says that he'll stop, and he does for a week or so, and then he starts back up. Amy makes about $60,000 a year, and her husband makes around $35,000 a year. So he's essentially blowing money that she's mostly making on takeout because he's too lazy to pack a sandwich. Amy asked me if I have any issues with my husband wasting money on stuff like that. I explained to Amy that my husband and I have always had separate finances. I make about $120,000 a year and he makes about $100,000 a year, and we split our utilities and mortgage and stuff 50-50. And we take turns paying for dates and groceries. We don't nickel and dime each other, but anything extra really comes out of our own money, like clothes, video games, etc. I don't really involve myself in his finances, not that I need to. He's a grown man after all. I didn't push her to do the same, I just answered her questions honestly. I explained why I'm happy doing this arrangement that works for us. Amy on her own confronted her husband and that she was tired of him not listening to her. And she got her own bank account and told him that their finances were going to be separate from here on out. He was furious, but she stood her ground and there was nothing he could really do about it. We went on a double date last night and it was awkward. He only got a side salad because it was his turn to pay apparently. He then kind of went off on everyone present about how he's glad that everyone was happy but him. It was super uncomfortable, and I don't entirely understand why a 30-year-old man expects his wife to foot his expensive lifestyle. He said that it was my fault for influencing his wife into doing something stupid. So I guess that this conflict is between me and him. Am I the jerk for indirectly influencing my friend and making her husband unhappy? Alright, folks, what do you think? Jerk or not the jerk?
Not the jerk. I mean, it's really, I think, a good thing that you let your friend know that there are other ways to live her life. Because if you have one partner who is routinely spending all of their shared money without consent, like, that is a problem.
Yeah.
And that person should not have unilateral access to all of the household money.
No, and I do think that they need to figure out a fair way of distributing the money and having, of course, fun money and other kinds of things. And if they're splitting their expenses 50-50, this might not actually be fair to him.
Yeah, well, OP and her husband are much closer financially, so definitely, I mean, I'm a big fan of splitting each according to their means. So if she's just taking OP's model, like, that might be a little extreme. And maybe they can talk and work a new shift out if that's the case. But certainly he should not have unrestricted access so that he spends all the money on DoorDash.
Yeah, she warned him multiple times that he needed to stop spending all of their money, and he kept doing it. He's shown that he's not financially responsible, and so I can't blame her for doing this. And honestly, I actually can't even blame her for doing a 50-50 split until he's paid back all the money that he's spent.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is like, it sounds like he's spending a significant chunk of change on DoorDash if, like, it's draining their finances.
Yeah.
And, like, when you have a partner who is that irresponsible with money, it is important to have household income they don't have access to, so you do have money for a rainy day, so you can save up for things your household needs.
Yeah.
And so I think it's everything. Well, first of all, OP only told her friend what her division was. She didn't try swaying her friend. So I think OP is 100% not in the wrong.
Yeah.
But even if she had been like, hey, maybe try this, like, I don't think that's a bad thing either.
No. And I mean, it depends on, like, back to the how much he was spending. just to kind of put the numbers on the page here, we'll just assume that he's spending like $30 a day on DoorDash, because that doesn't seem unreasonable, right? I guess like the meal plus tip or whatever. So if he's spending like even if we're just saying like $20 a day, that's $100 a week, right? $100 a week. That's like $5,000 a year if he's spending that kind of money on DoorDash. So if he is spending even just $20 a day on DoorDash, this adds up really quickly. I mean, that's just a pretty significant amount of money. I can understand why she would be really upset about that. I think he's just kind of bitter at this point in time. She's kind of laid down the law and said, we're going to split our finances this way. And if you don't like it, there's the door type of thing, I think is really what it sounds like. So I'm glad she's not being pushed around by her husband, really. So no, Opie, I don't think that you're the jerk. Take care and good luck. Turbulent Bad 3849 says, not the jerk, separate finances is a great way to go and keeps me from being annoyed if my wife wants to spend her money on something I find stupid, and vice versa. And OP replies, I agree. My parents had fully shared finances, and my mom would always say that my dad wastes her money on extra cigarettes, and my dad would complain that my mom wastes his money on beer. That life ain't for me.
Yeah, well, and I think having like budgeted fund money too can be a great way to do it. Like that way everyone has a certain amount of money they can just, so if he just wants to blow it on DoorDash, he might go through it in like a couple days, but he still has some money to play with.
Yeah, I do think that there should be some level of sharing, of course, in a relationship, but finances are a really hard thing. And you just really need to have a serious conversation and make sure that whatever decision you've come to is equitable for everyone involved. And Creative Ad 359 says, not the jerk. He's mad at you for ruining his gravy train. On a serious note, I don't understand how couples in this day and age don't have separate finances. No one needs to take care of anyone anymore. That life and world is long past. My wife and I do exactly the same thing as OP. Anything else that needs to be dealt with is discussed and we decide how and whose money will be used. On a different note, the fact that the friend's husband is furious says more about him than it does about you.
Well, I do want to pause for a second. I don't think that shared finances are a terrible thing.
No.
Like, we have technically separate finances, but we do shared things. Like, if I need to buy something, I can access Brian's account and it's not an issue.
Yeah, I mean, Amber doesn't technically have an income right now.
Yeah.
And so this would be more of a shared financial situation than that.
And so I think as long as no one is abusing anyone else's trust, shared finances can be healthy.
Yeah.
I think there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to have their own financial thing that works for them, and that's really between a couple and whether it works for them or not. All right, folks, our next letter is titled, Am I a jerk for not throwing my husband a birthday party? I'm a 35-year-old female, and I had my son a few weeks ago. My husband, a 39-year-old male, has been a huge help with taking care of the house, cooking, and cleaning. I let him know frequently how much I appreciate everything that he does. My family also helps with taking care of our son. My husband's 40th birthday was this past weekend, and he made it clear that he didn't want a huge party. I invited a few of his closest friends and family to go out for a nice dinner at his favorite restaurant. A few people couldn't make it, and it ended up being very small. I was exhausted the night before as the baby was up until 3 a.m. I did notice that my husband was quiet during dinner and had hardly touched his food. When we got home after dinner, my husband looks at me with an angry expression on his face. He starts screaming that I ruined his 40th birthday. That him telling me that he didn't want a huge party meant that he wanted a huge party. I was so tired that I burst into tears and haven't spoken a single word to him except when it's about the baby. I'm starting to feel like the jerk for not making my husband's 40th birthday a better one. All right, folks, what do you think? Jerk or not the jerk?
Not the jerk. Who is like, no, don't you do this thing for me, and then like shock Pikachu face when someone doesn't do that thing. No means no. If you want something, don't say, no, don't do this for me. Like, this just, his communication here is really horrendous.
I think I think they need couples counseling if this is his communication style, because who knows what other weird hints he's been dropping throughout the years that he's not had fulfilled because he's saying, don't do this for me or don't do that for me, right?
Yeah.
He clearly has some issues to work through if he really thinks that this is an effective means of communication.
I just feel like everyone would do a lot better if people were a little more straightforward and not trying to come up with these convoluted, like, no, don't you dare have a huge birthday party for me.
Yeah.
And then have that secretly mean, yes, do that for me.
Well, and again, I think that in this case, there was nothing that OP could have done differently. OP could have asked their husband to please clarify if they really mean that no means yes in this case. But the way it stands, like, OP is exhausted. She's taking care of this new baby, and he wanted her to arrange a giant party for her and while also saying, no, don't arrange a giant party for me.
Right, that's the other thing, is like, she just gave birth not that long ago, and she went ahead and organized him a nice little dinner. Like, I feel like he's just being really ungrateful here.
Yeah, it does feel very ungrateful. So, OP, I don't think that you're the jerk. Anyhow, take care and good luck. And Captain America says, this is some teenage girl kind of nonsense. He's a grown man. He can communicate what he wants or do it himself, not the jerk. That's kind of sexist.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a gendered thing. I mean, as this post clearly shows, anyone can have bad communication.
Yeah. The drunk scientist. Exactly. OP is not a mind reader. Adults can verbalize their needs and wants. And if they can't, they cannot be mad when they are misinterpreted. And B says, teenage girl kind of nonsense? Yet, in my experience, it's always grown men pulling this nonsense. Cut out the unnecessary misogyny when you know for a fact that you're wrong. Weirdo behavior for real.
Mm-hmm.
And Affectionate Egg 2059 says, right, that makes me mad. Why is it that any time a man acts petty, it means he's acting like a girl? BS.
Yeah, well, it's just a reminder that they attribute a lot of negative attributes to femininity, and yeah, it's not cool.
Yeah. And PSA Warrior says, he was throwing a mantrum. Alright folks, and our last letter is titled, Am I a jerk for refusing to help cook after my wife canceled our catering order? This weekend, my wife and I are hosting a retirement party for my mom. We are expecting around 20 people. We are splitting the cost of the food and beverages with my brother and his wife. During the planning process, I told everyone that I wanted to get the event catered so that no one had to spend a bunch of time in the kitchen cooking for 20 people. Everyone agreed that this was a good idea, and I told them that I would take care of it. I placed the catering order last weekend. My wife and sister-in-law have been handling the logistics, and when I told them the cost of the catering, about $300, my sister-in-law made a comment about that being too high. I told her that it comes to about $15 per person, which is basically getting everyone fed for the price of fast food combo meals, which with much better food. Sister-in-law said that we could save a lot of money if we just cooked ourselves instead. That sounds painful. The reason cost is an issue for sister-in-law is that they just welcomed their second child 2 months ago, and I guess they are feeling a little bit pinched financially. I explained to sister-in-law, again, my reasoning for wanting it catered, because I don't want anyone to be burdened with cooking for a large group, and that I will gladly pay a bit more than our fair share if that makes her feel better. That seemed to ease her mind. Unbeknownst to me, sister-in-law and my wife continued talking about it, and sister-in-law had taken it upon herself to plan an entire meal that we could cook ourselves for half the price of the catering order, without discussing anything with me. They decided to cancel the catering order and just cook ourselves. My wife told me this last night. When my wife told me their plan, I asked them who would be doing the cooking, and she said me and her, since sister-in-law and my brother would probably have to be watching the kids. I told her that since she and sister-in-law made the decision on their own, I am not going to help with the cooking at all. I said that I would gladly watch the kids while my wife and sister-in-law cook the entire meal for everyone. She told me that I'm being a jerk and sexist if I think that I can just refuse to help and make the woman do the cooking. I told her that she and sister-in-law are the ones who went behind my back and canceled the catering order, so they get to be the ones who figure out the new plan, but I'm not helping. She said that sister-in-law was concerned about the cost and that sister-in-law confessed that she was worried about money. I told her that's exactly why I had offered to pay more, but apparently that wasn't good enough and sister-in-law and my wife just needed to be in control of this for some reason. She told me that I need to be more understanding of my brother and sister-in-law's financial situation and that cooking isn't that big of a deal, especially when we can all save some money. I told her that since it's not a big deal, she and sister-in-law will have no problem spending as much time as it takes to cook for everyone while I will entertain the rest of the guests. She told me that I am being unreasonable jerk for not helping. Am I the jerk? All right, folks, what do you think? Jerk or not the jerk?
Not the jerk. And also, this isn't sexist. Like, she and sister-in-law made a unilateral decision to cancel the catering order you placed.
Yeah.
You had made your boundaries very clear. You said, I am not cooking. I do not want to cook. I don't care if I have to pay extra money. I'm not cooking. Your wife and sister-in-law decided then, oh, well, OP's word doesn't matter. We're just going to tell him he's cooking anyway because we can save money.
Well, and the thing is that they had all originally agreed with this first plan. And if they were concerned about catering costs, then they should have said something up front. And they should have said, we're really only comfortable with spending this amount of money. Can you cover any additional or anything like that?
Yeah, exactly. Like, if they were still feeling pinched even after OP's offer to cover more, like, there should have been some discussion around it instead of just going straight to OP's wife and being like, hey, like, we can't afford these costs and let's do this shady thing behind his back.
Yeah, because, like, $300 for 20 people, that's really not a terrible cost.
No,
right?
It's very reasonable, especially with the time saving in terms of, like, energy.
Yeah. And I understand, like, if you're feeling a pinch and you don't have the extra money to do this, then that's really understandable. But again, like, OP was willing to chip in extra, and they could have talked more about what would have made them comfortable in this situation.
Yeah, well, and it seems like sister-in-law here, she made it this choice without having to shoulder any of the burden.
Yeah.
Because she knew she wasn't going to be cooking. She knew it was going to fall onto OP and his wife.
Yeah.
And, like, that's not a cool thing to do. Again, like, I don't know why she didn't just ask OP if he could cover more of the cost or something. If it was still too high, they could have had another financial conversation or something. But instead, basically being like, oh, this is too much. We should just cook this meal, but I'm not cooking. And so I just don't like this situation. I feel bad for poor OP because it's not his fault. And I feel like offering to, like, look after the kids while they do some of the cooking is a perfectly generous offer.
Yeah. It might have been sexist of OP if he had been like, no, you guys, you're the women, you get to watch over the kids and cook the food. I'm going to go watch football.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, like, this is just, the genders don't matter here. It's people making unilateral decisions and now are suffering the consequences of their actions.
Yeah, so anyhow, take care and good luck. And J Moore 2010 says, dude, is this really an argument that you need to have? Save money, ease your siblings' money problems, and have fun in the kitchen with your wife. Sounds like a great time for me. I don't think I would say that you're a jerk, but I think that you're being lazy and not looking at the positives. And OP replies, cool, you gonna come over and cook then? Because I would prefer to spend those hours conversating with relatives who I don't see often. Thanks in advance for the help.
Yeah, exactly. Like, not everyone loves cooking. To me, cooking for 20 people would be a nightmare.
And Moon and Sun and Star says, info, you said that you would be willing to pay more, but would you and your wife really be able to afford to do so? And OP replies, $300 is less than half a day's work for me, so yes. Sounds like OP has no problem putting the money down.
Mm-hmm.
And Vegetable Brunch 740 says, you're the jerk. Cooking for 20 people is 2 pans of lasagna, a big salad, assorted canned beverages, and an ice cream bar for dessert. Make a couple of pots of coffee. Alternatively, grab a couple frozen lasagnas at Costco or BJ's and just cook them at your home. You and your wife could pull this off blindfolded. You're the jerk because I think that you don't realize or remember how strapped for money the other family is. An extra $150 when you have babies in diapers, etc. is completely unrealistic in many families. Just work together, save some money, and have fun at the dinner party. And OP replies, so kind of you to put together this menu for us. I'll be sure to send it over to sister-in-law so they can figure it out. All right, folks, it is tea time. Grab your beverages of choice. I've got some tea right here, and Amber, she looks like she has a joke, but it's not from a book.
No, it's another jovial Brystein joke.
Well, this guy has got a lot of funny business.
Why was the vampire in the empty flower shop?
Why was the vampire in the empty flower shop? Well, I'll tell you why the vampire was in the empty flower shop. They were like, I like roses. They're red. They remind me of blood. And so that's why they were there.
They were looking for blood in all the wrong places.
And I have Mega Mint. Someone should fire that guy. Those are terrible puns.
I love that one. That's my favorite you came up with.
All right, folks. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Friday. We made it to the end of the week. Congratulations to everyone. Amber, we need some kind of moral advice and guidance. And please, please have it in the form of a catering menu.
So we have here a menu. It just says menu at the top. And then it's blank. And at the bottom is a little asterisk. And it says, send to sister-in-law.
Yeah, a blank menu, catering menu for her. That would work. Thanks so much for watching. And we will see you all tomorrow.
Bye.